Hello, welcome. My name is Claire McLean. I'm one of the co-founders of the Neuro Collaborative. This is our second Facebook Live to do a weekly Facebook Live, and our goal here is to do some mini trainings. So if you're new, if this is the first time here, you can find out more information about us at our website, iloveneuro.com. And we also have a corresponding blog for each of our Facebook Lives, so I definitely recommend that you check that out. So yeah, basically tonight we are going to continue on the themes that we started talking about in our 7 steps to carve out your neuro niche in a non-neuro world, understanding that a lot of people are really excited and passionate about neuro, but not everyone is getting a chance to work with this population as much as they would like to. And we want to help people figure that out. And then we also know there are some people working with the neurologic population and really enjoying it, but also experience some challenges. We had some of those questions a few weeks ago when we did our live event, and so we wanted to keep talking about these topics. And one of the things that I'm really passionate about is looking at the gaps in the system and how can we always try to make things better. No matter whether you're working full-time in a hospital clinic, in a private outpatient clinic, whether you're thinking about starting your own business, really thinking about these gaps and what are the needs in the healthcare system, which, good news, bad news, there's a lot. So the bad news is there's a lot of gaps for people, and I think we see this on a regular basis where it's hard for people to get services in their area. Sometimes people have to travel a long distance, or it's hard for them to get a schedule that really works for them. Transportation can be a challenge. Luckily, at least if they have resources for physical therapy, occupational speech in their area, that's great. But then what do they do when insurance runs out? And, there's limitations no matter what type of insurance you have. And that's just the reality. And unfortunately, it's probably not going to be getting better anytime soon. And there's a lot of uncertainty within the healthcare system as well. So that's all the bad news. The good news is there's a lot of opportunity for us to make improvements to the healthcare system. So it can be little changes like where you work, thinking about how can you help with scheduling and how can you help, get people in, get them the therapy that they need, make sure that people aren't falling through the cracks, keep your schedule full, prevent cancellations and no-shows by making sure that you're helping them, get the schedule that works for them, maybe extra communication with your front desk. So there's basically a lot of potential gaps. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this is because one of the gaps that I saw in the system is now what I'm doing for my work. And so it's really cool to be able to share that. And I would say the other founders of the Neuro Collaborative are also doing that. Julie and Aaron have Reactive, a private outpatient clinic for people with neurologic conditions. That is in an area where before there weren't very many services for people with neurologic conditions. And so they're pulling from a huge area actually in LA because there aren't very many clinics. And so they would love to help people who are really interested in opening up a kind of brick and mortar clinic that people can come to. And then Sarah is seeing people in their homes. So that's a whole nother gap to fill, that some people, whether it's that they live too far from a location, or if transportation is limited due to cost, or if they're not driving anymore and they're not able to come into an outpatient clinic, there is a huge population of people who are not getting services just because they're limited in their home. And yes, there is home health, and sometimes that can work, but often, especially for people with neurologic conditions, this means that the services they're receiving are not necessarily as optimal as they could be. They're not necessarily getting to see therapists who specialize in neurologic conditions or even within a specific diagnosis like Parkinson's or MS or people who have had a stroke or spinal injury. So I think there are some therapists who can be great kind of generalists within the neurologic population, and then some kind of choose to specialize a little bit more. But overall, just having that background in neuro, you can be extremely helpful. So Sarah is seeing people in their homes, and that's amazing, and a lot of people really need that, and she's seeing a lot of success. And then the other thing she is working on is with her business having an online exercise program for people. So this is another gap, that there are some people, lots of people, who live in more rural areas and don't have a clinic, within an hour or 2 hours away from them. So maybe transportation isn't the issue. They could drive, but places are so far away that they're not able to reach those services. So that's another thing that NeuroCollaborative is excited about doing, is helping, get more content online, more information for people, so that people have a better awareness of exercise and physical therapy and other services that can help them, and then help them actually be able to access those resources. And then for me, I started working in a hospital-based outpatient clinic, and I was really excited to work there. We had awesome services, PT, OT, speech, 2 movement disorders neurologists that we got to work with pretty closely, a neurosurgeon, and it was great to work there. We also did not only individual therapies, but we did exercise classes, educational things. So I got to kind of be involved in all of those different things, and I really enjoyed it. With our classes, they were really growing, and I saw people be really successful and continue to improve in these classes after they'd finished individual physical therapy. And so I wanted to expand those classes. And really, though, this hospital-based outpatient clinic was really there to provide therapy. So they weren't really interested in expanding the classes a lot, which was something I was really enjoying doing myself. And I also felt like there was really a need for people, when they finished therapies, to be able to keep exercising. Because for the population I work, Parkinson's, and I'd say for most people who have a neurologic condition, it's really difficult to keep exercising after therapy, and especially to exercise at a level that actually helps you continue to get better. So that's one of the things I struggled with, and I would say I still struggle with, is the home exercise program. So you're working with people, they're getting better, and then you're supposed to discharge them, and okay, they need to keep exercising and doing things that are challenging and functional and relevant to their life. These exercises need to continue to get more challenging over time for them to continue to improve. And that's pretty hard to set up as a home exercise program. And if the clients you're working with have any cognitive impairment, that can be a challenge as well. And then for Parkinson's especially, there's difficulty with motivation. So dopamine is really important for us to experience pleasure and enjoy what we're doing and to be motivated. And so a lot of people with Parkinson's just say, they know that they should be doing something, they just don't feel motivated. And at any given time, they're pretty happy to just keep doing what they're doing, which is probably sitting on the couch or being pretty inactive. But when people sign up and pay for a class and have the camaraderie in a class and the supervision from a physical therapist or an exercise specialist who really understands Parkinson's and the type of exercise that they need to do, you continue to see people improve over time. And so I saw this at my previous employment. We'd probably been running a few different classes for a few years, and I saw people who basically were the same or better than they had been 2 or 3 years ago. And in Parkinson's, with it being a neurodegenerative condition, that's not supposed to happen. People are supposed to get worse over time. And so to see people get better and stay better, that was really exciting for me and for them. And I think neurologists were surprised, their family members were surprised, and basically these classes were really enjoyable. So as I really thought, okay, I want to expand these classes, and my employment was saying, no, therapy is really our focus, I thought, well, I wonder if I can make this work. Can I, go out and do this on my own and offer classes and individual wellness and physical therapy and different types of services? Can I make that work? And so that's the other thing we want to encourage people through the NeuroCollaborative, is to really inspire people to believe that, you can kind of make the career you want and, combine offering people the services that are needed and doing what you really enjoy doing. Have a little more control over your schedule and over the types of things that you do. So I have been able to do that, and now I'm running classes and doing individual wellness and really enjoying that, and doing assessments and tracking people and seeing how they do over time and really showing that people continue to do better. And I have multiple clients that I've been working now with for about 5 years, and multiple people are better now than they were 5 years ago, which is really exciting. And so, yeah, where are we? Okay, so I went off on a long tangent about why we're talking about this. So then the goal is that watching this video, we want everyone to do a little bit of an activity where you would sit down and write down what are the gaps that you see around you. And we got this question at our live event too of, where to refer people after individual therapy, that there aren't that many places that are running classes that you can refer people to keep up with after therapy. So go ahead and, write down, actually do this as an exercise. It's easy to just think about it a lot on your way driving to work or afterwards and think about the limitations and your frustrations. But if you actually take a minute and sit down and write down the gaps that you see, and which gaps do you think are maybe the biggest problems for people in terms of getting good services and continuing to improve? Or maybe it's just the thing that you feel like you are most passionate about and you're most excited to address that gap. Or maybe it's the gap that just seems possible, that it's the first thing that you could do. So if you have employment, maybe saying, I would like to start an exercise class for people to continue with. I'd say this is something that's really common at many clinics now and outpatient facilities, is that people are running some exercise classes. So if your facility isn't already running classes, you can bring this up and kind of, put together why this is needed and how it's going to be set up and how it's going to be organized and run. And likely, taking that information, just like last week, Julie talked about, having all that good information to take to your manager or boss or supervisor to justify those hour-long treatments. You want to have all that information ready to go to say, this is why I want to do a class, this is the need that it fills, and this is how it's going to be set up in terms of maybe you've already looked at cost and numbers that you'll need to make it worth it. Do you know how much kind of you and overhead is per hour? And can you possibly make the amount that the revenue that's built from classes be equal to insurance-based revenue? So all those kinds of things, bringing that information to your boss can be really helpful. So sit down, write down those gaps in the system that you're experiencing, and then think about which one you might want to address. And this may be something, maybe you want to write down all those gaps and then sleep on it and start thinking about it. Sometimes looking at all those gaps, it can be a little bit overwhelming, actually. So the goal with this activity is to write it down and to think, okay, I don't have to solve all of these problems, but can I just start solving one of these problems? Because it can be really satisfying to, identify a goal and start working on it. So think about what you want to work on and then set a goal. And ideally, give yourself an ABCDE goal where you actually say exactly what you're going to do, in what time frame, and that way you can track your progress over time and see if you're working towards that goal, and maybe give yourself some small steps if you're working towards a bigger goal. And then really think about what is the first step to move in that direction and give yourself these kind of attainable steps on your way. And then just looking at the comments, making sure there aren't any questions so far. Then I would say, so this is something that you can do in your employment to get satisfaction, feel like you're really helping people. And this also prepares you in case you are going to move and start something on your own, because you really start having to think about the business side of things, the organization side of things. And these are all the types of things that you need to do to be ready to take that next step and start something on your own, or maybe think about starting something on the side of your current employment. So I don't think we have any questions, although I see some guys in here, so it's really good to see you guys. Julie and Aaron and Chad and Rebecca, hey guys. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to put those in the comments. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to make sure to cover. Oh, I have a longer list of the gaps that I came up with before, but probably we don't need to hear all of the gaps that I see in the system. So I think we're getting close to wrap-up time then. Thank you so much, you guys, for listening, and hopefully this kind of just put some ideas in your head of thinking about what those gaps in the system are and how you can maybe start to address them now, and then think about what this might become, because it could be your next career move. It could be an entire business, and it could be a really flourishing business. Up in Reactive in LA, I'm just so excited to see what they're doing all the time. Sarah is doing really cool things as well, and I know a lot of other people who have joined NeuroCollaborative so far are sharing what they're doing, starting practices, providing services in different spaces, in different ways, and really just improving the lives and the care that are being provided for all these people with different neurologic conditions. So I'm really excited to continue the conversation with all of you. And please go, if you haven't already joined the private Facebook group, please do. That's really the best place for us to post comments and questions and have really good discussion. I'm looking forward to more of that. And also, if you have any, if you have any thoughts about topics that you would like to be covered, we have a survey at NeuroCollaborative/survey that you can go on and enter your setting and any questions that you have or topics that you'd like for the future. We definitely want to incorporate that. I see a question here. So any advice for people starting classes in a hospital setting? So I actually was lucky. When I first started working at my last position, there was one class already that was running. It was an LSVT Big follow-up class. So I wasn't the one to actually be the very first one to start the class. But what I would say is, if you're interested in starting a class, again, you have to think about the details. Is it going to be for one specific population? Is it going to be more of a general neuro class? What type of space will you need, or what type of equipment will you need? What types of numbers are you expecting to have in the class? How many people might you be able to fill? Who that you've seen in physical therapy might be interested? So we did have one class running, and then when we would think about adding a new class, we would usually start to keep a list of people who would be interested. And for us, we were expected to bring in, I think it was we needed to cover, to get a class started was $80 for 45 minutes because we had 45-minute sessions. So I believe it was something about that. I would have to double check. So we needed to have like 6 to 8 people just to get a class started, and then that was a range of about $10 per class is what people were paying. So knowing that you need to have, a certain number of people probably to get that class started, do you see, a lot of people with a certain diagnosis that you could have more of a diagnosis-specific class? And is that what you're interested in? Or I know there's another therapist who we work with in this area in Southern California, Mark Broberg. They have an private outpatient practice. And for them, it didn't really make sense to have it be just a diagnosis-specific class. They made theirs more of a general neuro class. And he actually said there were some really awesome benefits to that, again, of camaraderie, but people understanding other people and other diagnoses. And sometimes, it puts things in perspective for people. People with Parkinson's, often can feel like, wow, this is really rough that I have this diagnosis and I have these challenges I have to deal with every day. And then maybe they're in a class with someone who's had a stroke and has a different set of challenges, and it kind of puts things in perspective for them. So I think with classes, the cool thing is there are so many different ways it could be set up, and you just have to see, who is the population you have, start gathering interest, keep a list and let people know that as soon as you get to a certain number, you'll get it started. Space can be the other biggest challenge, I would say, because a lot of times space is a premium, and so finding out when you might be able to get access to a certain room. We had a really nice room right next to outpatient therapy, but it was used a lot of the time. So we had very limited times that we could get access to it. So finding out what space you might be using and then when you can get started with that. So yeah, lots of ideas there. And I think that could be a whole nother, maybe that'll be my next Facebook Live in a month. We'll be getting classes started, and I could be a little bit more organized ahead of time in kind of what are the steps you want to take and all the things that you need to look at. But yeah, great question. Thank you so much for that question. And I think we now have passed our 15 minutes of time. So I'll let you guys go for this evening, but thank you so much for joining us. Join the Facebook group, check out our website, fill out the survey. We're excited to continue connecting with you, and I'll see you guys soon. All right, have a good night.